Have you ever done everything right for your health eating fruit every day? Drinking water, avoiding junk food, only to be told by your doctor that your kidney numbers are quietly getting worse. And then you hear a sentence that sounds harmless but isn't. Your creatinine is a little high. What most people don't realize is that by the time creatinine rises, nearly half of your kidney function may already be gone, and that damage is often permanent. Here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. For millions of people, the problem isn't age and it isn't medication. It's the very foods they trust the most. Fruits that are labeled heart-healthy and natural can silently overload weakened kidneys with minerals they can no longer clear, pushing the body toward kidney failure without pain, without warning, and without symptoms until it's almost too late. That's why this matters so deeply. Because kidney disease doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It erodes your health quietly day after day while you believe you're doing everything right. But there is hope and real science behind it. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact fruits that can quietly destroy kidney function, and more importantly, 4 powerful fruits proven to protect your kidneys, lower inflammation, and help stabilize creatinine when used the right way. My name is Dr. Richard Hale, and if you want to protect your kidneys before irreversible damage sets in, this may be the most important video you watch this year. So stay with me, because what comes next could change how you look at food forever. Most people never imagine that eating fruit could quietly damage their kidneys. In fact, it sounds almost offensive to suggest it. Fruit is supposed to be clean, natural, and healing. So when patients sit across from me and say, "Doctor, I eat fruit every single day," I believe them. And that's exactly why this problem is so dangerous, because it hides inside habits that feel safe. Let me tell you about something I see far more often than I should. A patient comes in worried but confused. They don't smoke. They don't drink. They've cut back on salt. Every morning starts the same way: a banana, a glass of orange juice, maybe some melon, or a smoothie, because that's what they were told was healthy. Yet their creatinine keeps rising. Their kidney numbers keep slipping. And no one has explained why. Here's the missing piece most people never hear. Fruit isn't the problem when kidneys are healthy. The problem begins when kidney function starts to decline even slightly. At that point, the same nutrients that once helped your body can quietly turn against it. Fruits are loaded with potassium, phosphorus, and natural sugars. Healthy kidneys clear these effortlessly. Weakened kidneys cannot. Potassium is a perfect example. It's essential for heart rhythm and muscle function, but only when the kidneys can remove the excess. When they can't, potassium stays in the bloodstream building silently. There's no pain, no warning, but internally it creates electrical instability in the heart. Studies show that in people with reduced kidney function, high potassium intake significantly increases the risk of sudden cardiac arrhythmias, sometimes within hours. This isn't theoretical, this is real physiology. Phosphorus is just as deceptive. It doesn't make you feel sick right away, but excess phosphorus accelerates calcium buildup in blood vessels. Over time, this stiffens the tiny arteries inside the kidneys, reducing blood flow and destroying filtration capacity. According to research published by the National Kidney Foundation, elevated phosphorus levels are directly linked to faster progression of chronic kidney disease, even in patients who otherwise eat clean. And then there's sugar. Not processed sugar, but fructose, the natural sugar found in many fruits and juices. When consumed in large amounts, especially without fiber, fructose drives inflammation and oxidative stress inside kidney tissue. A study in diabetes care found that patients with kidney disease who consumed high fructose diets experienced up to a 28% faster decline in kidney filtration compared to those who chose low sugar options. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between stability and progression. The most painful irony is this: many of these people are doing exactly what they believe will save them. They're not ignoring their health. They're trying to protect it. But the kidneys don't care about intentions. They respond to load. And when that load quietly exceeds what weakened kidneys can handle, damage accumulates day by day. If this sounds uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. And no, this doesn't mean you should fear fruit or eliminate it completely. That's not the answer. The real danger isn't fruit itself. It's choosing the wrong fruit in the wrong amount at the wrong stage of kidney health. Because here's the turning point most people miss. While some fruits silently accelerate kidney damage, others do the exact opposite. They lower inflammation, They reduce toxin burden. They actually make the kidney's job easier, not harder. And the first one may surprise you because it's so ordinary that most people overlook it completely. But only knowing that fruit can be harmful isn't enough, because there is another factor far more powerful that determines whether fruit becomes medicine or poison for your kidneys. And almost everyone ignores it. This is where the story takes a different turn. Because once people realize that not all fruits are safe for weakened kidneys, the next question is always the same. So what can I eat without making things worse? And the answer often surprises them, because the first fruit that actually protects the kidneys isn't exotic, expensive, or trendy. It's simple, familiar, and most people have underestimated it their entire lives. I'm talking about apples. I still remember a patient who looked genuinely disappointed when I mentioned them. She said, "Dr. Apples feel too basic. Surely if something really helped the kidneys, it would be more complicated than that." But that reaction is exactly why apples are so powerful. They don't feel like medicine, yet they quietly do the work that struggling kidneys desperately need. Here's why apples matter when kidney function is under stress. Unlike many popular fruits, apples are naturally low in potassium. One medium apple contains roughly 195 milligrams, an amount that remains safe even for many people with stage 3 or 4 kidney disease. That alone makes apples different. But safety is only the surface layer. What truly sets apples apart is a type of soluble fiber called pectin. Think of pectin as a secondary filtration system that works outside the kidneys. Instead of forcing weakened kidneys to process every toxin and excess, mineral pectin binds to waste products, especially phosphorus in the digestive tract, and carries them out of the body through the stool. In simple terms, apples help remove waste before it ever reaches the kidneys. This isn't just theory. Research published in kidney-focused nutrition studies has shown that people who consume higher amounts of soluble fiber experience significantly better phosphorus control and lower inflammatory markers. In some studies, fiber intake of around 25 to 30 grams per day was associated with up to a 23% improvement in phosphorus balance. That's a meaningful reduction in workload for organs that are already struggling. But apples don't stop there. The skin of an apple contains powerful antioxidants, including quercetin and chlorogenic acid. These compounds directly target inflammation and oxidative stress, two forces that slowly scar kidney tissue over time. Chronic inflammation is one of the main reasons kidney disease progresses, even when blood pressure and blood sugar appear controlled. Apples quietly interrupt that process. There's also the issue of blood sugar, which many people overlook when thinking about kidney health. Apples have a low glycemic index, meaning they release sugar slowly into the bloodstream instead of causing sharp spikes. That matters because repeated glucose spikes damage the delicate blood vessels inside the kidneys. Stable blood sugar means less microvascular injury, and less injury means slower decline. One long-term observational study following thousands of adults over several years found that people who regularly consumed apples had a significantly lower risk of developing chronic kidney disease. Not because apples were a miracle cure, but because they consistently reduced inflammatory load, metabolic stress, and toxin buildup day after day. The key, however, is how apples are eaten. This is where many people go wrong. Peeling the apple removes most of the protective compounds. Turning it into juice strips away the fiber and concentrates the sugar. The benefit comes from eating the whole apple with the skin, slowly, ideally alongside a meal. Simple habits matter more than people think. For many of my patients, this becomes a daily ritual. 1 apple a day. No drama, no extremes, just consistency. And over time, lab numbers stabilize. Swelling improves, energy returns. Not because apples are magical, but because they give the kidneys breathing room. But here's where you need to stay with me. Because while apples lay the foundation for kidney protection, they are not the most powerful fruit on this list. The next one is small, often overlooked, and packed with compounds that go far deeper, right down to the level of the nephron itself. But only knowing this isn't enough, because there is another factor, one that is even more dangerous if ignored, and most people never see it coming. After apples lay the foundation, this is where kidney protection moves to a deeper level. Because if apples help take pressure off the kidneys, the next fruit actually helps protect what's left inside them. And this one is often dismissed because it looks too small, too simple, almost insignificant. I'm talking about blueberries. I once had a patient who loved smoothies, but was terrified of fruit after being warned about potassium. She told me, "Doctor, I feel like my kidneys are fragile glass. One wrong food and everything shatters." Instead of telling her to cut fruit completely, we made one small change. We removed bananas and mangoes and replaced them with half a cup of blueberries a few times a week. 6 months later, her kidney function had stabilized. Not improved dramatically, not reversed overnight, but it stopped getting worse. And sometimes that's everything. Here's why blueberries are different. From a kidney perspective, they're remarkably low in potassium, about 57 milligrams per half cup, and contain almost negligible phosphorus. That means they don't overload weakened kidneys with minerals they struggle to clear. But safety alone isn't what makes blueberries special. It's what they do once they're inside the body. Blueberries are one of the richest natural sources of anthocyanins, the deep blue pigments that give them their color. These compounds are powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant agents, and inflammation is one of the main forces driving kidney decline. When inflammation stays high, nephron cells become scarred, stiff, and less capable of filtering blood. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that blueberry anthocyanins reduced kidney-damaging inflammatory cytokines by up to 47% in experimental models. That's not a cosmetic effect. That's a biological slowdown of the very processes that destroy kidney tissue over time. What makes this even more impressive is where these compounds work. Many antioxidants circulate in the blood, but never reach kidney tissue in meaningful concentrations. Anthocyanins are different. They can cross into kidney structures and directly protect the nephrons themselves, the microscopic filters that decide whether your kidneys survive or fail. There's also a critical metabolic angle here. Blueberries improve insulin sensitivity. That matters because unstable blood sugar damages the tiny blood vessels that feed the kidneys. When glucose spikes repeatedly, it weakens those vessels, reducing oxygen delivery and accelerating nephron loss. Several nutrition studies have shown that regular blueberry consumption is associated with better long-term blood sugar control, even in people with insulin resistance. And when blood sugar stabilizes, kidney stress decreases. It's a chain reaction most people never connect. Blueberries also support vascular health by increasing nitric oxide production. This helps blood vessels relax and improve circulation. In practical terms, that means better blood flow to kidney tissue and less pressure inside fragile filtration units. Some studies have shown modest but meaningful reductions in systolic blood pressure, around 4 to 6 millimeters of mercury, simply from regular blueberry intake. Over time, those small numbers translate into real protection. The way blueberries are consumed matters. You don't need supplements. You don't need powders with flashy labels. Fresh or frozen both work. Freezing doesn't destroy anthocyanins. Half a cup 3 to 5 times per week eaten alone or mixed into yogurt or oatmeal is enough to create benefit without excess sugar, and that's the key distinction. Blueberries deliver protection without overload. They calm inflammation instead of feeding it. They protect nephrons instead of exhausting them. They work quietly without drama but deeply. At this point, many people feel a sense of relief. Finally, a fruit that feels safe. Finally, something they don't have to fear. But this is where I need you to stay with me. Because while blueberries protect kidney cells, the next fruit does something entirely different. It activates the body's internal repair systems. But only knowing this isn't enough, because there is another factor, one that is even more dangerous if ignored. And most people never see it coming. If apples reduce the load on your kidneys and blueberries protect the filters that are still alive, then this next fruit goes one step further. It doesn't just protect, it helps the body repair. And that's why it's often misunderstood, underestimated, or used completely the wrong way. I'm talking about red and purple grapes. Most people associate grapes with sugar, or worse, with wine. So they assume grapes are off limits once kidney problems appear. But that assumption misses the real story, because what makes grapes powerful has very little to do with their sweetness and everything to do with what lives inside their skin. I once worked with a patient who had done everything right for years. Blood pressure controlled, diabetes managed, diet clean, and yet his kidney function kept declining slowly but steadily. When we reviewed his habits, he avoided fruit almost entirely out of fear, especially grapes. We reintroduced them carefully in small portions with intention. Months later, his lab results didn't just stabilize. They improved enough to surprise even his nephrologist. Here's why that happens. Red and purple grapes contain a compound called resveratrol, a polyphenol that has been studied extensively for cardiovascular health. But what many people don't realize is that resveratrol also plays a powerful role in kidney repair. It activates a family of proteins called sirtuins, particularly one involved in cellular defense and DNA repair. When kidney cells are under chronic stress from high blood pressure inflammation or oxidative damage, these pathways help cells survive instead of scar. Research published in kidney-focused journals has shown that resveratrol reduces inflammation, improves mitochondrial function, and slows fibrotic changes in kidney tissue. In practical terms, that means fewer nephrons are lost over time. In some studies, markers of kidney function improved by more than 20% when resveratrol exposure was consistent. That's not maintenance. That's movement in the right direction. But grapes don't stop there. The kidneys are essentially dense networks of microscopic blood vessels. When circulation deteriorates, filtration collapses. Grape polyphenols protect the lining of these vessels, keeping them flexible and responsive. Better circulation means better oxygen delivery, better waste removal, and less internal pressure inside the kidneys. There's also hydration. Grapes are more than 80% water. For people who struggle to drink enough fluids or who are afraid of overloading their kidneys, grapes provide gentle hydration without the shock of large fluid volumes. It's subtle, but over time it matters. Now here's where most people make their mistake. Grapes are powerful, but they are not unlimited. They contain natural sugars, and excess sugar, especially fructose, can undo the benefits by fueling inflammation. This is where precision matters. A small handful, about 15 to 20 grapes 2 or 3 times per week, is enough to activate protective pathways without stressing blood sugar or kidneys. And always eat them with the skin on. That's where resveratrol lives. The darker the grape, the stronger the effect. Deep purple and crimson varieties contain significantly higher concentrations than green grapes. I often tell patients color isn't cosmetic. Color is chemistry. When used correctly, grapes don't spike. They don't overload, they signal. They tell the body to shift from damage control into repair mode. And for kidneys that have been under siege for years, that signal can be life-changing. But here's the critical point, and this is where many people stop listening too soon. Even with apples, blueberries, and grapes working together, there is still one factor that determines whether kidneys truly get relief or continue to struggle. And the final fruit on this list addresses that factor directly in a way most people never expect. But only knowing this isn't enough, because there is another factor, one that is even more dangerous if ignored, and almost no one talks about it. By this point, many people start to feel hopeful. Apples reduce the burden. Blueberries protect the filters. Grapes help activate repair. But there is still one problem kidneys face every single day that none of those fruits fully solve on their own: inflammation and fluid congestion. And this is where the final fruit quietly changes everything. Pineapple. Most people think of pineapple as a guilty pleasure, something sweet, tropical, maybe even too sugary to be taken seriously for kidney health. I've had patients laugh when I mention it. One man said, "Doctor, I thought pineapple was vacation food, not medicine." But that misunderstanding is exactly why pineapple deserves attention, because when used correctly, it does something no other fruit on this list can do. Here's the reality kidney patients live with but rarely talk about. As kidney function declines, inflammatory debris, damaged proteins, and excess fluid begin to accumulate in tissues. This creates pressure inside the kidneys and throughout the body. Swelling in the legs, puffiness around the eyes, fatigue that doesn't match activity. Many people assume this is just part of getting older. It isn't. Pineapple addresses this at the root. Unlike most tropical fruits, pineapple is relatively low in potassium. 1 cup of fresh pineapple contains roughly 180 milligrams, less than half of what you'd find in a single banana. That alone makes it safer than most people expect. But potassium content is only the entry point. The real power of pineapple comes from an enzyme called bromelain. Bromelain is not a vitamin. It's not a mineral. It's a biological tool. This enzyme helps break down inflammatory proteins and fibrin, the sticky debris that contributes to tissue swelling and scarring. When kidneys are inflamed, these proteins clog microscopic pathways, making filtration harder and recovery slower. Bromelain helps clear that buildup. Research published in Biotechnology Research International showed that bromelain significantly reduced inflammatory markers associated with kidney damage while improving overall kidney function. In some models, inflammation dropped by over 40%. That's not symptom relief, that's structural relief. What makes this especially important is that bromelain works without stressing the kidneys. Many anti-inflammatory medications reduce pain but increase kidney strain. Bromelain does the opposite. It reduces inflammation while lightening the kidney's workload. For people walking the fine line between stability and decline, that difference matters. There's also the fluid balance effect. Pineapple acts as a gentle, natural diuretic. Not harsh, not dehydrating. It encourages healthy urine flow, helping the body release excess fluid without shocking the system. Patients often notice less swelling and less heaviness within weeks, not because pineapple flushes the kidneys aggressively, but because it restores balance. And then there's vitamin C. Pineapple provides a substantial amount, around 70 to 80 milligrams per cup. Vitamin C neutralizes free radicals that damage kidney cells and blood vessels. Combined with bromelain, it creates a two-step process. One clears inflammatory clutter, the other protects against future damage. But this is where precision matters most. Bromelain is fragile. Heat destroys it. Canning destroys it. Syrup destroys it. Pineapple juice strips away the fiber and dilutes the enzyme. The benefit comes from fresh pineapple, ideally including a small portion of the core, where bromelain is most concentrated. The solution isn't excess. Half a cup to 1 cup 2 or 3 times per week is enough. More is not better. This isn't about flooding the body, it's about signaling relief. I've seen patients who struggled with swelling, restless sleep, and constant fatigue finally feel their bodies settle when pineapple was added correctly. They didn't feel stimulated. They felt lighter, calmer, less inflamed. That's what kidney relief feels like. And when pineapple joins apples, blueberries, and grapes, something important happens. The kidneys are no longer just surviving. They're being supported from multiple angles: load reduction, protection, repair, and drainage. But here's what most people miss, and this is the real turning point. Even with the right fruits, the outcome still depends on how they're used, when they're rotated, and what habits surround them. Because fruit alone doesn't decide whether kidneys recover or fail, patterns do. But only knowing this isn't enough, because there is another factor, one that is even more dangerous if ignored. And it often determines whether someone stays stable or ends up on dialysis. Before you leave this video, I want you to take a breath and hear this clearly. If you're worried about your kidneys, if your creatinine has been creeping up, or if you've ever felt scared reading a lab report, you are not alone and you are not powerless. Kidney decline doesn't happen overnight, and healing doesn't require perfection. It starts with awareness, small daily choices, and the willingness to support your body instead of fighting it. The foods you choose, the habits you repeat, and the patience you give yourself truly matter. By choosing the right fruits, using them consistently, and respecting your body's limits, you are already doing something meaningful for your future. Even small changes done daily can reduce strain on your kidneys and give them the breathing room they need to stabilize and recover. If this video helped you understand your kidneys better or gave you a sense of clarity, please save it so you can come back whenever you need a reminder. And consider subscribing to this channel, because every week I share clear, science-based medical insights to help you protect your kidneys, naturally avoid unnecessary damage, and make confident health decisions without fear. Most importantly, hold on to this truth. Kidney health is not just about avoiding failure, it's about preserving your freedom, your energy, and your quality of life. Your body is designed to heal when you give it the right support. And no matter where you are today, there is always something you can do to move in the right direction. Take care of your kidneys, stay consistent, and stay hopeful. I'll see you in the next video.